The Bible called them plagues. Today we call them natural disasters. But they're actually one and the same. And the biblical plagues are coming back. A hailstorm in the Austrian Alps. In just a few minutes, hailstorms can do millions of dollars worth of damage. In Austria, it's happening year after year, and it's likely to get worse. Hail, thunderstorms, torrential downpours, and the havoc they wreak are terrifying in their effects. And this is despite advances in science and technology. But some people are rising to the challenge. They are trying to get to the bottom of these unpredictable, uncontrollable weather events. Egypt, 1500 BC. The pharaoh was building a new royal city. He needed workers, and he used the people of Israel as slaves. After generations of oppression, the people of Yahweh demanded their freedom, but Pharaoh refused to let the Israelites go. Moses went to Pharaoh and warned him of the plagues God would visit upon the land of Egypt. Then a dreadful thing happened. The waters of the Nile turned to blood. All the fish died. Frogs bred uncontrollably, infesting the homes of the Egyptians. Next came a plague of insects, and then a plague upon the cattle. But Pharaoh hardened his heart. For the seventh plague, God sent terrible storms, hail, lightning, and thunder.
Fine, yes, right. When Moses stretched out his staff towards the sky, the Lord sent thunder and hail, and lightning flashed down to the ground. So the Lord rained hail on the land of Egypt. Hail fell and lightning flashed back and forth. It was the worst storm in all the land of Egypt since it had become a nation. Throughout Egypt, hail struck everything in the fields, both men and animals. It beat down everything growing in the fields and stripped every tree. I think they could have had no expectation of this hailstorm. It was, it's something which developed in the clouds well above them, and then these hailstorms came thundering down, so they couldn't not have expected it at all. The hail would have beaten down the plants. The Bible says it stripped the leaves off the trees. It implies the hailstones are very large because it damaged animals, so those animals who hadn't been killed by the plague on the animals, the hailstones would have damaged the animals, so it would have caused huge destruction.
Texas, May 2006. The frightening force of a hailstorm is captured on amateur video.
All right, a minute. Shut your eyes. Keep your eyes shut. They're huge, yes. Glass my eyes, I think. Yeah. What do we lose? Back window. Keep your eyes shut. On your head.
Texas, Colorado, India, China, Austria. Hailstorms wreak terrible destruction wherever they strike. One of their main targets is the Alps. It's not as idyllic here as it looks. Even at the height of summer, the weather can change in an instant. As the sun beats down, a lot of moisture evaporates. Thermal winds along the steep valley sides carry the moisture upwards until it turns into clouds and hail forms. Hailstorms are particularly common in the Alps. The Styria region of southern Austria is particularly vulnerable. At Weitz airfield near Graz, pilots of the local Hail Defence Association are on watch. For Franz Gruber and his pilots, the boredom of waiting can suddenly turn into high tension. They must be able to reach the most distant part of their 1,800 square kilometre territory within minutes. Munich, July 1984. The temperature was over 37 degrees centigrade. Storm cells developed in the foothills of the Alps. They unleashed a hailstorm that wrought the worst destruction this area has known since the Second World War. People were injured, cars and houses suffered major damage, to the tune of $2.5 billion Australian dollars. There are such frequent hailstorms in the high plains east of the US Rocky Mountains that region is known as Hail Alley. Boulder, Colorado. At the National Center for Atmospheric Research, or NCAR, Charles Knight has been studying hail for over 40 years. He's preserved some special hailstones in a cold store.
This hailstone fell in Coffeyville, Kansas in 1972. And it weighs about 700 grams. And a hailstone this size falls about 40 meters per second. These hailstones of this size will go through the roofs of some houses, and of course if they hit a person on the head it will kill them. But in the United States, people are not generally outdoors when such a storm happens. In countries like China or India, when a hailstorm of this kind occurs, they can kill quite a few people out in the open fields. There was a storm in Bangladesh in 1986 that killed almost 100 people in this way.
Back in the Alps. Reports of hail disasters are becoming ever more common. Hail does terrible damage to crops. The insurers are getting worried. The damage bill has virtually doubled every 2 years. And the farmers look on, helpless.
Da haben wir eine weiße Wand da drüben herkommen gesehen und das war innerhalb von ein paar Minuten war das da auch mit so einer Geschwindigkeit. Durch den Sturm, weil so ein starker Sturm auch war, hat es den Hagel nachher noch beschleunigt auch noch.
After the storm, an expert from the Austrian Hail Insurance Organization sets out at once. This non-commercial body helps cushion the financial impact on the farmers. He assesses the hail damage. Even though these plants look green, they will bear no fruit and will even be useless as animal fodder.
Man sieht hier Pflanzen, die total zerstört sind. Hier ist überhaupt kein Ertrag mehr zu erwarten. Man kann sich das so vorstellen, diesen Blattflächenverlust oder diesen Assimilationsflächenverlust, so wie wenn man einem Menschen eine Lunge entfernen würde. Wenn man hier keine Fläche hat mehr zum Atmen, wenn man keine Möglichkeit hat, hier zu assimilieren, dann stirbt die Pflanze irgendwann ab oder kann einfach keine Erträge bilden.
Nearby is a destroyed pumpkin field. This field would have produced over 1,000 litres of valuable pumpkin oil, if not for the hail. In just a few minutes, everything was destroyed. Nothing was left but scrub. In another field, the same farmer lost the entire crop. The combine harvester was booked for the very next day.
Auf dem Feld liegen ca. 25 Tonnen Getreide am Boden, die was nicht mehr zu erwischen sind. Gell? Das sind 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Das sind 20 Körner auf 10 Quadratzentimeter. Das ist nicht zu beschreiben. Die Arbeit, die kann man. Ich weiß nicht, ob man das irgendjemandem der was nicht direkt damit zu tun hat, ob man das so sagen kann, was man sich da denkt dabei. Gell? Das ist das Gleiche, wie wenn einer sagt, der hat das ganze Jahr nichts gearbeitet. In etwa. Auf das kommt es letztendlich hin. Gell?
Josef Graschi has no choice but to plough it all under. The greenhouse effect is changing living conditions in mountain regions all over the world. It's getting hotter and drier, but at the same time there are more extreme weather events, such as torrential rain and hailstorms. Some fruit growers have spent a fortune on giant nets to protect their precious harvests. But the nets are expensive, and the hail still destroys the fruit at the edges of the nets. The cost of the damage is increasing dramatically, season after season. Surprisingly little research has been done in the past on the exact effects of rain and hail. Austrian scientists are now changing that. Experts at the Joanneum Research Centre in Graz are developing an instrument that will record exactly what is falling from the sky. To test it, they simulate both rain and hail. Wherever rain, snow or hail is falling, they can measure how big the hailstones are, their speed and the force of their impact. They hope that precise data will help them better predict the onset of hailstorms. They're checking, for example, how reliable radar is in observing hail. Joanneum scientists have helped develop software that distinguishes between rain and hail on the radar screen.
Für eine exakte Beobachtung von Hagelgewittern kann man sich die Eigenschaft der Partikel zunutze machen. Wassertropfen werden durch den Luftwiderstand zu linsenförmigen Gebilden systematisch verformt. Die sehen dann abgeplattet aus, während Hagel feste Eispartikel sind, die in ihrem Durchschnitt die runde Form beibehalten.
Polarized radar impulses scan the particles on both a vertical and a horizontal axis. If both signals receive a similar echo, they must be bouncing off a spherical shape, and that means hailstones. This method makes it possible to tell from a long way off whether or not approaching clouds will bring hail. In Colorado, in the US Rocky Mountains, specialists are working on a hail early warning system. The challenge is that several different factors must be present. for thunderstorms and rainstorms to turn into hail. So any attempt to forecast hail must take all of these factors into account.
Whether you can forecast hail in time to make any useful warnings, it's a little bit questionable whether it's worth doing, because there isn't much people can do in preparation for a hailstorm. You can put your car in the garage maybe.
In Austria, the pilots of the Hail Defense Association are getting ready for the next storm. When it comes, they will fly straight into it. The pilot checking his plane knows what he's in for. A breaking hailstorm exerts pressures on light aircraft that go far beyond the normal safety margins of everyday flying. On the radar, the build-up of storm cells is easily seen. The clouds that could bring hailstones are coloured yellow-orange. Franz Gruber has been fighting hail for 30 years. He's well aware of just how quickly the weather can change.
Da muss man schon sehr schnell sein. Man muss die Flugzeuge schon vorgewärmt haben und nur mehr warten, bis am Radar das richtige Bild entsteht. Aber da zählt jede Minute. Ich würde sagen, Landradar 23 im Bereich Dreistal, dass du mal in deinem Flugzeug hingehst.
The pilots will be flying right into the storm cloud. It's part of a bold plan to outdo nature and modify the weather. In days gone by, people here put black candles in their windows during a hailstorm or recited the rosary.
Was früher gemacht worden ist, ist es so Böller geschossen worden. Nicht Raketen, sondern Böller. Man hat geglaubt, mit einem lauten Knall praktisch das Wetter vertreiben zu können. Dann haben wir noch stehen drüben einen Glockenturm, wo sie früher praktisch geläutet haben und so versucht haben, das Wetter zu vertreiben. Es gibt ein sogenanntes Flurbetten. Das heißt, da gehen die Leute, so wie bei einer Prozession, durch die Obstanlagen durch und beten. Das ist auch ganz interessant.
The Hail pilots' work is controversial. Many people doubt that their attempts to influence the weather will have any effect. Others even see it as dangerous interference in a natural process. In America, there have been attempts to influence hailstorms with acoustic signals. Farmers have invested large sums in radar-guided hail cannons that are supposed to prevent hailstorms with a loud noise.
Hail cannons are fairly popular in some areas. They do make a loud noise, and some people believe that they work. The scientists can see no reason why they should work. The parts of the clouds where hail grows is several kilometers away from the cannon. There's no reason for it to influence the winds in the storm in any significant amount at all.
The people of ancient Egypt were under no illusion that they could change the weather. They simply accepted the punishment meted out by God. The Lord said to Moses, "Send therefore now, and gather thy cattle, and all that thou hast in the field. For upon every man and beast which shall be found in the field, the hail shall come down upon them, and they shall die." God warned the Egyptians, but Pharaoh was not ready to believe him. Then God showed the Egyptians his power. The innocent perished because they refused to listen, because they resisted this knowledge and resisted Yahweh.
problem in ancient Egypt, the plague of hail, if you read the Old Testament, it wasn't only hail. There was this massive hailstorm. There's also thunder and lightning and a huge deluge of rain as well. And in the desert, rain is normally a good thing because it helps the crops to grow. But here it was just so heavy, it would have caused flooding and it would have damaged the crops. I was in Jordan a few years ago. The week before I was there was a flash rainstorm, a thunderstorm in Jordan, which caused flash floods and people were drowned, tourists were drowned. So these events do occur and they're rare events, but when they happen, they can be very dramatic and very severe.
In the Alps, too, they don't know whether storms will come in the form of hail or as torrential downpours. It's determined by updrafts and the temperature. The results are often catastrophic. Climate change means more and more sudden and devastating rainstorms in the mountains. People are asking how much longer they will be able to live in the Alps. This question drives the work of Professor Johannes Hübel of the Institute of Mountain Risk Engineering in Vienna. He and his team of engineers are trying to develop ways of defying the mountain weather. He knows that climate change is widening the gulf between dry areas where it hardly ever rains and the zones where it rains too much in too short a time. He and his team are testing devices that measure rainfall in real time, not just average values over a 24-hour period. This is the only way of monitoring accurately the amount of damage that a rainstorm is doing, and of raising the alarm before the worst happens.
Da kann es in 1 Kilometer, 2 Kilometer Entfernung kann staubtrocken sein und die Sonne scheinen. Und genau da über einen Fleck steht das Wetter halt. Es reichen 20 Minuten, 30 Minuten intensiven Niederschlags völlig aus, um einen Wildbach wirklich wild werden zu lassen.
Kann denn der Boden die Feuchtigkeit nicht aufnehmen?
Wenn dementsprechende Wassermengen herunterkommen, dann ist der Boden bald einmal überfordert. Nicht? Also, es gibt Messungen, so 90 mm innerhalb von 30 Minuten. Nicht? Und das ist für jeden Boden doch etwas zu hoch.
The surging waters of a mountain stream can rapidly become an unpredictable, uncontrollable force. A force strong enough to wash away hillsides, to destroy bridges and uproot trees, and sweep boulders downstream. The team from the Institute of Mountain Risk Engineering is studying just what severe storms are capable of. A few days ago, there was a torrential downpour here in the Gustine Mountains. The experts know exactly how much rain came down. Now they are measuring how much rock it dislodged. Their great fear is the overwhelming force of a mudslide or a rock avalanche. In their laboratory at Wiel, the engineers are trying to recreate a natural disaster. They want to find out exactly what happens during a landslide and how the massive forces involved can be measured. Can this simulated mudslide shed any light on the real-life destruction in the mountains? How much energy is unleashed? How much debris do landslips and avalanches carry with them? The scientists discover that the higher specific gravity of boulders and stones makes a rock avalanche 6 times more destructive than the same volume of water. A landslide thunders down into a valley, gathering speed as it goes. Any debris that isn't carried along by the landslide is buried beneath it, as shown by these small polystyrene balls. If they want to test similar events in the mountains, The scientists have to develop instruments that can stand up to tons of pressure. This is a test site in the Vorarlberg region. Special cameras will record every stage of the test. The scientists keep their distance. The outcome of the test is too unpredictable. This buffer will measure the pressures that any existing buildings, bridge pillars and mountain roads would have to withstand. 1,500 cubic meters of water will be released from a reservoir and channeled down the stony slope. An artificial mud and rock slide that shows just how destructive nature can be. Once unleashed, the combined power of the mountains and the weather can end in disaster. Landslides don't normally happen in a controlled situation. A rock avalanche took the occupants of this house by surprise as they slept. Not all of them survived. Nowadays, 40% of the total annual rainfall in the Alps falls in just 12 days. Sometimes it's concentrated in just a few square kilometers. That's hundreds of liters an hour. Here at La Fernbach, near Hofgastein, Professor Hübel and his colleague Friedrich Zott are checking a structure their team has developed. They want to tame the storms and hold back the mudslides before they thunder into the valley. Three weeks earlier, a real drama unfolded here. In just a few minutes, heavy rain mixed with hail caused a rock and mudslide that blocked the entire valley. The equivalent of hundreds of truckloads of earth was swept down from the mountains.
Es war ein kurzes Gewitter am späten Nachmittag, früher Abend, das sich da in diesem Bereich, in diesem Einzugsgebiet ausgetobt hat. Innerhalb von 15 Minuten ist das Ganze von 0,05 auf 50 Kubikmeter angestiegen. Die 20.000, 25.000 Kubikmeter Feststoffe waren wahrscheinlich in rund 20 Minuten, 30 Minuten herunten. Es hätte nicht mehr an Geschiebe kommen dürfen, dann wäre alles drüber gegangen.
At the Digital Image Processing Institute, part of Joanneum Research in Graz, remote sensing specialists assess satellite images and observe the effects of climate change worldwide. They watch hillsides that slip, mountains that move, all the places where heavy rain has left its mark.
Dinge, die wir erkennen können auf so einem Bild, sind beispielsweise Hangrutschungen, also Muren, die runtergegangen sind, die teilweise Straßen verschüttet haben oder Häuser verschüttet haben. Hochwasser und Hochwasserschäden können sehr gut erkannt werden und man kann es auch für die Vorhersage dann verwenden.
Even special barriers, like the one at La Fernbach, can't provide complete protection.
Und hier sehen Sie, dass das Hochwasser durch diese ganze Ortschaft geflossen ist. Also der Flusslauf, der wäre normalerweise diese enge Linie hier. Und die Auswirkungen des Hochwassers kann man hier gut erkennen. Also es sind große Teile dieser Ortschaft eben von diesem Hochwasser betroffen.
The poor resolution of the satellite images makes it hard to see the full extent of the destruction. But to the experts, it's quite clear. All over Austria, there are declared danger zones. But even in places where all new building is banned, there are people living whose families have been there for centuries. They're rarely prepared to leave.
Österreich hat eigentlich nur zu einem geringen Teil eine Fläche, wo man problemlos siedeln kann. Die ganzen Schutzmaßnahmen, die im Laufe des letzten Jahrhunderts eigentlich so entstanden sind, können auch nur bis zu einer gewissen Größe eines Ereignisses einen möglichen Schaden abpuffern. Alles, was größer ist, ja, das ist Schicksal.
In biblical times, people had no choice but to accept whatever fate brought. Servants, cattle, the fruits of the field, all were affected by hailstorms. The weather destroyed everything. In the downpours and hailstorms of today, what part does man play? How far we are to blame for our latter-day plagues is a matter of dispute. But one thing is certain, we can't blame the rain and hailstorms on the wrath of God. And unlike the ancient Egyptians, we may be able to do something to prevent the worst of the storms.
The evidence we have from Egyptian literature is that the Egyptians thought the weather was sent by their gods. So the ancient Egyptians had one god who was the god of thunder, and they had another god who was the god of lightning, and another god who was the god of rain. So if they had gentle rain, they would have believed they'd pleased their god. But this heavy hailstone and thunder, they would have believed they'd displeased their god, and this was a punishment on them. That's how they would have regarded this.
Styria in Austria. The hail pilots aren't interested in praying, they want to act. They're taking the weather on and risking their lives. Not everyone agrees with what they're doing. Too little is known about what goes on inside the clouds. At the National Center for Atmospheric Research in Boulder, Colorado, they've been trying to find out for years exactly what happens inside clouds during a storm. Charles Knight is conducting an experiment to see how rain and hail are created. He introduces water vapor into a chest cooled to minus 20 degrees centigrade, the normal air temperature several kilometers up. This creates an artificial cloud. The air is soon saturated with moisture, but nothing happens. There's no precipitation, neither rain, nor snow, nor hail. Then Charles makes dry ice out of carbon dioxide under high pressure. Carefully, he crumbles it into the chest. The cloud changes. Stimulated by the particles of dry ice, the water vapor crystallizes around them, forming the first grains of ice. Rain and hail form only when there are enough ice nuclei in the air. The Styrian hail pilots are applying this finding in real life. They take off when other pilots are seeking safety on the ground. And they fly to the very place other pilots are trying to avoid. They're hoping to get as close as possible to the storm. They can expect sudden, powerful gusts of wind. When they fly right under a storm cell, the updrafts can be so strong that their engines cut out. These updrafts are also indispensable for the creation of hailstones. In Germany, the Institute for Atmospheric Physics at Mainz has a unique wind tunnel. It can simulate atmospheric conditions at any altitude. Right now it's set to ground level, 21 degrees centigrade, with no wind. Physicist Nadine von Blom switches on the generators. They are needed to simulate the weather conditions that are typical of clouds. She's about to increase the altitude. Nadine wants to make hailstones and study their characteristics. The temperature in the wind tunnel is down to freezing point. That means she's reached about 2,000 meters. A powerful updraft, just like in a storm, stops the particles from falling to the base of the tunnel and keeps them where they can still be observed. Nadine fills a syringe with silver iodide, the same chemical that is used by the hail pilots. She's been working for months to get the right balance between pressure, temperature, and humidity. She has to keep adjusting the updraft so the particles stay in sight. She's trying to find answers to some puzzling questions. What exactly are the conditions in which hailstones form? What might they contain? And what substances are they made of? This whirling movement shows that the hailstone is beginning to grow. It's becoming harder to control in the chamber. Something similar takes place in the sky. Clouds saturated with moisture often travel hundreds of kilometers without shedding a single drop of water. They only start to do so when they encounter ice particles, which cause condensation. The moisture then attaches itself to every foreign body in the air. For example, to so-called aerosol particles. These come from industrial waste. They may be dust, grains of sand, or exhaust from jet engines. Because of the cold, most of these tiny aerosol droplets turn to ice. Back in Colorado, Charles Knight can show exactly how rain and hail form several kilometers in the sky. In his cold store, Charles places drops of water on a tray. At minus 20 degrees, they're still liquid. In clouds, water like this is known as supercooled drops. They only freeze when he adds a particle of ice, in this case a snow crystal. The experiment makes it clear. If the ice particles created in nature become heavy enough, they fall to Earth as hailstones. If they cross warmer air on the way down, they melt and fall to Earth as rain, unless updrafts send them back up into the layers of colder air. At these heights, they remain frozen and they also grow, perhaps to the size of a human fist, which is too big to melt before it reaches the ground. Charles is studying the interior of these large hailstones to find out how they were formed. He saws a hailstone in half. Not an easy task when it's minus 20 and you're wearing thick gloves. He smooths the surface of the cut hailstone and glues it onto a sheet of glass. Then he slices off a thin layer in order to examine it under polarized light. Coloration clearly shows up the different rings. The hailstone has repeatedly returned to the atmospheric layer of supercooled drops. It has gone down and then back up again.
The numbers of rings in a hailstone tells you something about how often the environment, the growth environment changed. Hailstones themselves grow in a variety of locations. When the vertical wind velocity in the storm is faster than the fall velocity of the hailstone, it goes up. And vice versa, the hailstone goes down towards the ground, towards a warmer temperature.
Back in Styria, Austria. The updrafts help the hail pilots when they're flying beneath the eye of the storm. That's when they switch on their burners. The flames spread silver iodide and billions of tiny particles are scattered into the storm clouds. Each particle is the potential kernel of a hailstone. If the pilots are late arriving, they use additional burners. It speeds things up and sows even more silver iodide particles amongst the storm clouds. The pilots are vaccinating the clouds by injecting them with a large number of condensing particles. The more particles they inject, the more widely the mass of water will be distributed, rather than concentrating in a few heavy hailstones. The small hailstones that do form will quickly melt as they fall to Earth. A bolt of lightning has put the radar station out of action. Franz Gruber and his pilots must rely on experience. With so much rain on the airstrip, the planes can't land. They have to keep on flying. Their mission continues. This time, their sortie seems to have done some good. It rained heavily in Weiz and surrounding areas, but the downfall did not last long and was not particularly destructive. They managed to prevent hail, apart from a few small stones that were caught in the fruit farmers' nets. Many of the farmers are firm believers in the protection of their Hail Defense Association. ' But scientists are still divided about weather modification, be it hail prevention or rainmaking.
I think it's dangerous modifying the weather, of making rain or suppressing hail. There are always complicated secondary results of what you do, and so you have to be very careful about using it. Rainmaking, for instance, there's always the worry of not just making the rain where you want to, but of depriving somebody downwind of their rain, and all of these issues. Making more snow in the mountains causes more avalanches. All of these efforts have pluses and minuses that need to be balanced, and very few of them are very predictable at the moment.
The Styrian hail pilots return home safely. Their mission was a success. They believe that justifies their interference with nature.
Früher war das Wetter anders. Die Wetterlage hat sich grundlegend geändert, die Großwetterlage. Es wird immer heißer. Die trockenen Tage und Wochen nehmen zu. Und wenn es einmal regnet, dann gibt es nur Unwetter. Und das haben wir jetzt eigentlich in den letzten 5 Jahren ist das eigentlich immer ärger geworden.
They are fighting something that is seemingly uncontrollable, the weather. But even if their system works, these pilots can do no more than alleviate the worst effects of the storms. In the future, we must combat the causes of climate disasters. The days are gone when people believed they faced divine punishment and were powerless to act. The storms were so heavy that Pharaoh finally despaired and begged for mercy. He summoned Moses and Aaron and acknowledged his guilt. Entreat the Lord, for it is enough, that there be no more mighty thunderings and hail. The people of Egypt were used to hardship and natural disasters. It would never have occurred to them to try to alter the course of the weather. They accepted disaster as divine punishment. The will of God had to be done.
In the ancient world, they were much more accustomed than we are that when natural conditions are tough, people died, and they just accepted this. This was a way of life, as it were. They were all part of nature. They would see animals dying all the time, and then humans would die when there were plagues or when there were famines, and this was just something that they had to accept, and they couldn't do very much about. We have to accept the world is the way it is. All the best science suggests that global warming is happening because of carbon dioxide emissions. So we then have a challenge, and we have to say, what do we do about this? Do we let it happen? Because the consequences will be sea level rises, millions of people will be displaced, probably millions of people killed. So we know those consequences, and we can do something about it, but we have to have the political will to do something about it.
And when Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail and the thunders were ceased, he sinned yet more and hardened his heart, he and his servants. And the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, neither would he let the children of Israel go.